everybody, welcome to my garden. Today I'm going to give you a little treat. I'm going to show you how to plant potatoes. Now there are different ways that you can plant them. You can plant them in the ground, which I think is the conventional way. Or if you don't have enough of a big backyard, you don't have a lot of land, then you can plant them in containers like this. You can plant them in a size like this. This is more than about a foot deep. Or you can plant them in, some people have planted them in tires, when you stack up the tires until they form like a cylinder. You can do that way. Or you can get 25-gallon container. You can get them at Home Depot, they sell them there. I'm not sure what the cost is, but anything that's deep enough so that when the potatoes start growing, they'll have some depth to put out the tubers. But today we're using this, and I have grown them in a container like this. And for those of you who've been following me on Facebook, you might have seen where I've harvested some of the red potatoes. I got quite a few. I was surprised, never done it before. But I'm going to show you the method that I used to plant potatoes. So the first thing you're going to need are some gloves. I'm going to put mine on, some gardening gloves. You can use your hands, it doesn't matter, if you're not squeamish about getting your hands dirty. Gardening gloves, container, and you're going to need some compost. If you have your own made up, that's excellent. If not, then you can get bags of compost at the gardening store, Home Depot, Lowe's, it's everywhere. A good potting mix, and I have the bags here. They're kind of heavy for me to lift, so I'm not going to show them, but you can get them at Home Depots and like I said, any gardening center. And a little bit of topsoil, not a whole lot, but at least these three elements. And of course, seed potatoes. I am using, take my gloves off a little bit. These potatoes, and the thing you want to notice about, that you want to pay attention to when you're planting potatoes is that you see these little things here. These are called chits or eyes. The potatoes have to have these growing from the surface of their skins before you can plant them. Otherwise, you won't get anything. And it's best to use seed potatoes. I'm using here blue seed potatoes that I got at the Home Depot a few months ago. Because if you use store-bought potatoes, they spray them with a retardant so that they won't grow eyes. So it's best to use seed potatoes or potatoes that you have sprouted yourselves. Yeah, you can use those. And to amend the soil, what I mean by amend is you're going to add some extra nutrients to the soil, because the soil might not have everything that the potatoes are going to be needing for their growing life. So what I like to use to add more nitrogen is something called organic blood meal. It's in this packet here. And what it is, it's just these little granules. Can you see inside the bag there? Like this. All you need is like a teaspoonful of this stuff. And also what I'm going to be using today too is bone meal. And this is what it looks like, bone meal. And here, it's just a sort of a white powdery stuff that you're going to put into the soil and mix it up really well. And as the potatoes grow, they start sprouting, you see the green leaves, then, from like every other week, you can put a little bit of Epsom salt around the, the bases of the plants and water them really well. So without further ado, I am going to plant these potatoes. So let me get my gloves on again, and I'm going to first put some compost in this pot. So here I go. Get my little trowel here. So I'm going to just scoop out some compost, put it right. And you're not going to fill up the whole container, because what you want to do when you plant potatoes, you're going to do something called hilling. What that means is, as the potato plant grows, and you see the leaves coming up above the surface, when they get to about 1 inch or 2 inches high, you have to put more soil there to hill them, to cover them, just barely have the tops of the leaves showing, so that as they grow, what will happen is that the potatoes will put out these little tendrils or stalks that will have that will ultimately have potatoes on the ends of them. I mean, there's nothing wrong with filling the container if you would like, but I've had success, you know, doing it this way, and it's just a preference of mine actually. If you want to plant them into the ground, you can. Alright, so this is the manure that I put in here. So next I'm going to add a little bit of topsoil, and then I'm going to add the potting mix. So let me just put my little potatoes aside here. Try not to break off the little rose buds here. Okay, so here we go. A little bit of potting soil, and then, no, this is topsoil, excuse me. Add some of that. So my goal today is not to fill the pot, I just want to get them started. Okay, so the rest will be the potting soil. So let's get a little bit of that in here. So mix it together like that. I want it to be evenly mixed. Shake it up. Okay, if there's any little like sticks and anything that's gonna interfere with the roots, I would pick them out. Yeah, I've been seeing some like this. See that? I don't want that in there, so I'm gonna pick that out. Okay, so here we go. Potting soil. And there are different kinds of potting soil on the market. You know, there's some very good quality potting soils there. Break that up like that. Okay, I think I've got enough there just for the initial planting of these potatoes. Okay, now I've mixed it up. So the next thing I'm going to do is to add a little food to this. Some of the potting soil already has some food in it, and so did the manure, but it's not quite enough because you want to give them a really good start before you know, let them go and let the sun and the rain do its job. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to add a teaspoon of blood meal, which I showed you. So I'm just going to add a teaspoon to that. Sprinkle it on there like that. This has a lot of nitrogen in there. It has, what's the formula? The formula is, quite a lot. Nitrogen 12. Oh yeah, this has a lot of nitrogen in there. 1200. So this is rich in nitrogen. Okay, next we're going to add some of the bone meal. And the formula on this one is 2% nitrogen, phosphates 14%, and calcium 15%, which is excellent, which is what we need here. So I'm going to put just a teaspoon of that in here as well. It's just a little white powdery stuff. Try not to get this up my nose. That wouldn't be good. Okay. So what you do, you mix that up. Make sure it's evenly distributed here. Mix it all up. Make sure it's all in there. Yeah. Good. So the next thing is the grand finale. We're going to put our potatoes in there. So what you want to do is, remember I told you about these chits or the eyes? You bury the potatoes in there. I don't know if you can see that, like that. But make sure the eyes are facing up, not downways or sideways. They have to be facing up, right? So I'm only going to put 2 in here. I don't want to put too much because it's going to be, they're going to crowd each other out, and you might not get, you know, the amount of potatoes that you're hoping for, which is a lot. So you just cover them up like that. If you want, you can add a little bit more potting soil to cover them so that they're properly covered up. Perfectly okay to do that. Here we go. So the next thing you want to do is to water. So I've got a gardening hose here. I'm going to just add a little bit of water to them. Here we are. Give them a good soaking. And when you're using containers, guys, make sure that they have draining holes at the bottom, or you're going to have to drill some holes in there. Because if you don't, you know, the potatoes are going to rot and you're not going to be happy. They won't grow. So make sure whatever container you're putting these things in, that they have holes in the bottom for good drainage. Okay, and that's basically it. You know, you just put them out in a sunny area and let God do his work. So you should start seeing the tops of some little green leaves, I would say in about maybe 2 weeks, because it didn't take long for my other potatoes to start doing that. If you can look around, I'll show you what I mean. Over here, let me take the camera with me, hold on.